Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome once again to Nerd Week Live here on YouTube, brought to you by the folks, or in this case, the folk, from Nerd Caliber. I'm Rodney Brown. I'm the editor-in-chief that is talking in my own ear. Editor-in-chief of Nerd Caliber, first-person shooter as a cosplay photographer, burly adopter as a tech journalist, Twitter and places like that. I'm alone tonight. We have people still recovering from various illnesses. We have people with otherwise pressing engagements. We have Byron out screening Captain Marvel right now. And I'm doing this because I was supposed to go yesterday during the day and got snowed in. So here in the greater Boston area, we got more than a foot of snow. So I'm not jealous or angry or anything like that whatsoever. I'm supportive of my fellow Nerd Caliber team member and his ability to watch Captain Marvel before anybody else here does. Anyway, that being said, on the website we'll have a review very shortly. Hopefully you'll have it filed tonight. If not, sometime early tomorrow. We'll have it up during the day tomorrow. I'm going to start off tonight. I don't have an image for this because it's just a quick bit of news, and it's very local and regional news. If any of you out there are in the area, if you haven't seen this or heard of this, Merrimack Games and Comics, a wonderful store in Merrimack, New Hampshire, got broken into just recently, and somebody who knew exactly what they were doing apparently smashed in the glass front, came in and knocked out a security camera, and went right for the case that had the very expensive high-end collections of gaming cards, mostly Magic the Gathering type. If you have heard anything about this, if you know anything about this, please contact the Merrimack, New Hampshire Police, contact Merrimack Games and Comics. Wonderful, wonderful people. Cameron, welcome to the show. Welcome. My image is reversed here for me. Anyway. Not that it matters, because you don't know I'm looking over at this other monitor to see all the chat. Welcome to the show. If you know anything about this, or if you've heard anything about this, if there's a remote rumor of a tip you've heard, please contact the police department there at Merrimack, New Hampshire, or the folks at Merrimack Games and Comics. It's wonderful people that run it, and one of the owners is the son of Bob and Kim Shaw, who are kind of local convention legends, you might even say. Certainly stalwarts. And it's just an absolute shame to see anything like that happen to anybody connected to them. So, with that said, moving on to our first bit of news, and since I am rocking the solo thing here tonight, this is probably going to be a quick, it's going to be a very quick show, now that we've whittled things down to X number of topics. There's not going to be a lot of back and forth. I'm more than happy to answer your questions in the... Again, you can't see where I've got my chat. More than happy to answer the questions in the chat, but otherwise, it's going to be pretty fast. So the first thing is, that is the rumored lead of the upcoming Ghostbusters movie. Rumored, this is a single source story coming out of Variety. That is the actress Carrie Coon. I tried to find, to make a nice, funny joke, a really nice, sharp picture of Proxima Midnight, because Carrie Coon played Proxima Midnight. But you know what? Couldn't find a particularly high-res enough one to go out there on these feeds that showed anything other than her behind her spear, in case you couldn't see anything at all. Anyway, the rumor is that the Ghostbusters story is going to be about a single mom, somehow connected to the original team, and her single child, her only child, son, potentially played by Finn Wolfhard of the It movie and upcoming sequel, or second part, and, of course, Stranger Things. If this is true, I think it'd be kind of sort of hilarious. I think it would have been funny if it was sort of a Stranger Thing ripoff and it was a bunch of little kids. I think it'd be even better if it was a single mom with an only child. Because you got to remember, even though Jason Reitman has said this is not Juno, Jason Reitman directed Juno. He had directed Young Adult. This sounds more like it's turning right into the Jason Reitman wheelhouse of the kind of product that he makes. And I think that would be probably a better story than a lot of people are hoping to see. Bunch of really old guys sitting around in Ghostbusters uniforms drinking from Crystal Skull vodka. Um, but I also think it would be kind of a nice little stab in the back of the the normal incel men's rights whiners that practically destroyed everybody involved in the Ghostbusters all-female remake. So, still a rumor though. Carrie Coon, by the way, is really good. She was in Fargo. She was in The Leftovers, that wonderful series on, I think it was HBO. In fact, this is from the HBO series. So she's not just Proxima Midnight, and I know a lot of people hated the Proxima Midnight special effects CGI. I wasn't a huge fan. I think Carrie Coon did an excellent job with it. And kind of playing against type. I mean, she doesn't really play super villainous villains. But anyway, it would be great to see this rumor to be true. I would like that more than the idea of just a straight up Stranger Things ripoff, or of course the thing that every, like I said, MRA whiner out there wants to see, which is the Ghostbusters cast coming back, the ones that are not dead. Moving on to our next bit of news, and that is, I like this idea. That's Dev Patel. That is from Chappie, of course. It's tough to find a photo of Dev Patel when he's not in a suit, because a lot of his stuff is either pictures from various red carpet things, or Newsroom, in which he was almost always in a suit. So, but the reason I'm trying to find an image that did not have him in the suit is that he has been tagged to star in a movie called Green Knight, which is an adaptation of the medieval Sir Gawain in the Green Knight tale. This is directed by David Lowery, who did A Ghost Story. Producing it as well, along with Toby Halbrooks and James M. Johnston. Don't know exactly when this thing is scheduled for. This is just the announcement that they're making it and that Patel will be in it. But I think it's a great idea, and it sounds like it's a fairly straight-up interpretation. If you don't know the story of Gawain and the Green Knight, it's one of the better ones to ever come out of the Arthurian legends cycle. It's a test of, basically a test of Gawain's both bravery and loyalty to the king, and it's a wonderful story. I would strongly suggest you find a copy of it and read it if you're not like really up on your Arthurian stuff. But I like it. I like the idea. I like the casting of Dev Patel as Gawain. He's not gonna look like your basic red-headed, blonde-haired, or light brown-haired Celtic Brit, and it'll be interesting to see how they take that. Moving on to our next bit of news, and that is the announcement that there will, in fact, finally be a sequel to Edge of Porch. Oh, no, I'm sorry, that's where they're standing. Edge of Tomorrow. Edge of Tomorrow, big Tom Cruise movie, Emily Blunt, science fiction movie based on a wonderful Japanese manga, and it looked like it kind of pretty much wrapped up by the end of the movie. If you haven't seen it, it's not really a spoiler, but it is a fairly tightly wrapped bow. But I guess the idea was that this was always intended to be, if not a franchise, at least a couple of pictures, and it's taken a while to get everybody back on board. From what I understand, everybody is back on board. This is bringing back Tom Cruise and Emily Blunt. Director Doug Liman, all of them are coming back. And Matthew Robinson, The Invention of Lying, interesting, is going to be the writer. Apparently he pitched a story about a sequel, and they liked it. Warner Brothers liked it and brought him on, said write it. big hit, $370 million worldwide for Warner Brothers, 90% approval rating on Rotten Tomatoes. I liked it a lot. I can see how they might take this into different directions. I'm also a little afraid that it's just going to be a kind of a rehash. Oh, look, bad guys are back. No. But if Warner Brothers jumped on it, I'd like to think that at least this guy, this writer of The Invention of Lying, came up with something, you know, different enough to attract the attention of both, Cruise and Blunt. No word as to when that's happening that I can see here. Let me go back and look at that. No. So I can't tell you when that's going to happen. I'm going to guess no earlier than 2020, but hopefully not much later. So let's see where that goes. And let's move on to... So I had to pick this picture, folks. This is Alan Tudyk, of course, the wonderful, the brilliant Alan Tudyk, currently being seen as the wonderful Mr. Nobody in Doom Patrol. If you're not watching Doom Patrol, go watch Doom Patrol. And the reason I picked this picture for the news is that it has nothing to do with the latest project he's going to be involved in, which is a new TV series called Resident Alien that'll be on SyFy. In Resident Alien, he plays an alien who is apparently here on Earth to determine whether or not his species should just come invade and kill everybody. And to do that, he is undercover as a small town, as a sheriff. This picture is, of course, from Tucker and Dale vs. Evil, and the reason I put this up here is if you haven't seen Tucker and Dale vs. Evil, it's dropping sometime on Netflix this month, pretty early, I think, if it hasn't already. And so you get to go to see it for, well, free or not much if you have a Netflix subscription, and you really should. And yeah, Cameron, I agree. He will fit the alien role really well. I mean, he is such a talented actor. From thoroughly frightening bad guy as Alpha in Dollhouse, or as the very unhinged hitman in Justified, to very heroic. Wash is one of the most wonderfully heroic, tragic characters in science fiction. Alan Tudyk is one of my absolute favorites, and I like this idea. Resident Alien has been ordered to a series, so apparently they made either a pilot or a pitch. It's been ordered 2 series by SyFy. It's adapted for television. It's based on a Dark Horse comic series. I'll have to look any information up about that. I don't really know much about it. They're going to start filming this summer in Vancouver, so I'm guessing either a late 2019 or mid-season 2020 release. It's being adapted from the comic by Chris Sheridan, apparently one of the writers on Family Guy. And it's being called a drama, not a comedy, which I kind of like the idea. Luminous, welcome to the show. You've got to see Tucker and Dale versus Evil, Ty. It's hilarious. And yes, he is a great voice actor. It blew my mind when I found out that he was the voice of King Candy in Wreck-It Ralph. He channeled such a classic, I can't think of the name of the 30s, 40s, and 50s actor that he was sounding like. But I thought it was a Rob Paulson or somebody who was a more traditional mimic. And it's Alan Tudyk. He's so good. Another one of his excellent villain roles. But yeah, so going to be on SyFy. Going to start filming this summer in Vancouver. The setting for anywhere in the greater northwest part of our country, you film it in Vancouver, and everybody buys it. Just like most everything in Titans, which is supposed to be Minnesota, Wisconsin, Ohio, Illinois, upstate, was all filmed in the greater Toronto area. So it fits. It works. They can make it looks a lot more realistic than So I just saw Venom a couple of days ago over the weekend. Finally, put down the money and watched it on Amazon Prime. And that opening scene is set in Indonesia. It was Malaysia. In Malaysia, I think. And boy, did that scenery around Malaysia look an awful lot like, the woods of Ohio or Pennsylvania. Of course, it turns out it wasn't. It was filmed somewhere in Canada, and you could at least try to make it look a little bit more tropical than, than Canada. But what can I say? The rest of the movie was just as stupid, and as everybody said, just as much fun. But we're moving on. All right, so now we're going to get into a whole slew of trailers here that dropped this past week. And the first one we're going to be talking about is Shazam, and that is actually an image from the second trailer, because I couldn't find a high enough res image from the newest trailer that just dropped earlier today, or yesterday. Unfortunately, it's a shame, because actually I think the costume looks even a little bit different. I think whatever CGI they're doing for some of the aspects of the costume, they've improved from trailer to trailer. But if you haven't had a chance to look at it, check it out. It has one of the best lines, and I kind of worry that they're giving away all the best jokes. And if they're not, it's going to be funny as hell. But there's a joke about his name, and not the Shazam joke when he first, says, say my name and take my powers. It's actually a Captain Something joke, and it's really funny. And there's a sight gag right at the very end. They're just like fall down laughing jokes and gags, but those are really funny. It would be a shame if they were giving away all the good stuff in these trailers. If they're not, this is going to be just a hoot, start to finish. So I can't wait to see that one. So if you haven't seen the trailer, go check it out. If you have seen the trailer, let me know in the chat what you thought about it. And since I don't have anybody to fill in around me, I'm going to mute my mic for a second. So you don't hear the sounds of me chugging tonic water and lime. And no gin, which is why. Why would you do that? So movie comes out in April. Very much looking forward to it. There was some article on one of the sites about Zachary Levi's workout routine to get jacked. So while I think that there is some muscle suit aspect to the suit, he's pretty jacked underneath that naturally. If you go look at it, he pumped up, as they say. So anyway, check it out. It looks really good. I'm really liking the new one. It's very, very funny. And you get a lot more of Mark Strong as the bad guy, which is good. And more interaction as well between Shazam, Billy's version as Shazam, and the bad guy. Moving on to our next trailer. This dropped a little while ago. And that is the latest trailer for Hellboy. The Red Band trailer, so I'm not sure everybody out there has seen it. Violet, how you doing? Welcome to the show. The Red Band trailer has some cursing, actually really minimal cursing, and a lot more blood. So I guess that's what gives it Red Band. But it also even further reinforces the idea that aside from, that's Mia Jovovich as the big bad in this version of Hellboy, the Sorceress Nimue, aside from that change, and some of the supporting characters, there's an awful lot of the very first Hellboy in this movie, and you can tell by the trailers. Even a bit about, his summoning. It comes from the comics, so I guess if you're going to do his origin, it's going to be summoning by Nazis, But it all looks different. I mean, the production design is different enough. It's pretty, it's pretty cool. But it's still, hey, I saw that with different people. Hopefully, it's going to be different enough that you don't get done with this movie and go, oh, okay, well, that's somebody else's fan fiction of that exact same movie that came out 15 years ago or whatever it was. So if you're able to watch Red Band trailers, I really hope that you get a chance to check this out. It's got some good additional stuff. And a great one-liner by David Harbour at the very end. Not quite as good as Ryan Reynolds in Blade 3, but it's up there. Our next trailer that dropped. Talk about rehashing. All right, so this is interesting. So the Dark Phoenix dropped a trailer a couple of days ago. It was the second trailer. And it basically looked like an exact retelling of The Last Stand, with a little bit of a hint about the fact that, or a quick shot that that this isn't just an inherent trait of Jean's, that she did pick up this power like in the comic book, somehow in outer space. Apparently they either got so much negative feedback about this trailer, or they just decided that they needed to put something else out there to clean things up. They dropped another trailer earlier today, folks. If you haven't seen, there's a third Dark Phoenix trailer that came out just a couple of days after the last one. It came out about 7 hours ago. And it makes it abundantly clear that this is more, or at least the origin part of this, is more Jean's story from the comic book than it is from The Last Stand. And it's a better trailer. It makes it more interesting as a story. It also implies even more deaths than the trailer number 2 made it pretty clear. At least they're trying to make it pretty clear who buys it. I'm not going to say it if you haven't seen it. If you haven't seen trailer 2 and you don't want any of that information about who it looks like they're showing pretty clearly is going to buy the farm. But trailer 3 makes it look like even more people will be purchasing plots of arable farmland in this movie. Still kind of on the fence, and one of the big problems, and I'll have to see how I feel about this when I see it, if I get a chance to be the reviewer, is I don't know if you haven't developed Jean as a character to be concerned about, having Jean as a character who then goes off the reservation, why would you care? I don't think in this particular iteration of the movies that we've established that Jean Grey is anybody we really know or give a rat's patootie about. She hasn't been an important enough part of the story yet, I don't think. And so then they put her in this situation where, okay, well, Dark Phoenix, she becomes something bad and horrible. Meh? I mean, that aspect of it is going to be missing, I think. Certainly from the comic. Granted, the comic had 30-ish years of building up Jean Grey before, and then years of her having the Phoenix power before it became Dark Phoenix. So, I'm not sure this is going to play out well. But I'm still going to watch it, of course, because it's X-Men. And our next one, and in fact, our last one. Luminous, all the news stories I heard about the Dark Phoenix suggest that the movie will not be good. Yeah, they've reshot it a couple of times now. I don't think that anytime you have that many reshoots, except for Rogue One, Star Wars story, Rogue One really, really worked because of the reshoots. That's usually a really bad sign. Hack the Wolf, super cool. Whatever is super cool, I probably agree. Dragoneer Volgs, hi, hello, how you doing? Speaking of Dragoneer, or Dragon Jr., I'm going to go with Dragoneer because I like that. Speaking of dragons, our last bit is, it dropped today, folks, the first official full trailer for Game of Thrones Season 8. And there is more stuff in here to unpack than you can shake a dragon's tail at. When it came out, as I posted in just generally on my Facebook, I'm really curious as to what in the world at this point in this storyline could possibly make Arya scared. And that's right, that's the first bit in the trailer. And what in the world can possibly make Cersei tear up at this point in her story. And that's also something that happens. That's about 2/3 of the way into the trailer. CR Rocks. Good, thank you. I'm glad you like it. Luminous, I don't want it to end yet either. Luminous does not want Game of Thrones to end yet. If the show ends and that gets George R.R. Martin to finish the goddamn books, then yeah, I'm okay with the show ending. Please, George, finish those last 2 books. There is a YouTube channel called Alt-Shift-X, folks, that is... he does a few things, but he really specializes on Game of Thrones. And deep, deep, deep topic matter expertise that I couldn't even come close to touching. And I've read all the books up to this point. And, I would suggest you go look at, if you can, he said he was going to put it behind his Patreon wallet, so I'm not sure if it's there yet. He did a live stream where he broke down the trailer. And as he joked around, it was an hour-long stream for a 1.5-minute trailer. And if you want to get every theory, every little image analyzed, go check that thing out. Some things that I want to mention that I don't think are particularly spoilery. Because things were slowed down enough that people notice this. In the beginning of this trailer where Arya is running through wherever she is running through, my first thought was it was the catacombs of Winterfell. It may not be the case. If you slow it down enough and you stop a couple of frames, there is somebody chasing her. There is a very dark figure coming around a corner. Dark in the sense it's all shadow. You can't tell who it is. The framing size doesn't look like it's the mountain. But who knows? What are some other things that we were shown that would be really cool? You get to see a really cool shot that implies... No, actually, you do see them right next to each other at one point, although it's really quick. Brienne of Tarth and Jaime Lannister fighting next to each other on the battlements of Winterfell, probably fighting off White Walkers. But there's also a shot of Euron Greyjoy's fleet sailing somewhere, loaded up with the Golden Company. So he has all those mercenaries that were over where Daenerys used to be. And they may be fighting something other than White Walkers there at Winterfell, or both. You never know. I mean, this may be a two-pronged attack. Check out the trailer, or if you haven't seen it and you're really into this, it's got so many cool things, including they don't say anything about what this is, where it is. It looks too empty to be around Winterfell. There's no... there's no forest anywhere. It's just ice and snow. So that kind of implies that this is over the wall, north of the wall. But you also have to wonder, what in the world did they just burn and eat? That's an awful lot of goats to be in one spot. The rib cages look a little bit too big to be goats. In relationship to the heads of the dragons, they kind of look, horse-sized or something. And maybe that's it. Maybe the dragons, fought off some things that were on horses and, scarfed down what was left. But just, I love this shot and this whole was like 3 second from the standpoint of the dragons, and then it turns around and it's from the standpoint of Jon and Daenerys walking up to them. It's wonderful. So go check it out, folks. Can't wait. April 14th. April 14th. A little more than a month from now, we get to see all of this excitement. If you check out Alt-Shift-X's live stream, or he's going to do a complete breakdown and analysis in a day or two, so you go check that out. Be prepared to get all of the theories, because like I said, he knows this stuff cold, and he knows all the theories, and he won't spare anything that he thinks might be a spoiler. Just, oh look, this means this is happening at this place. Well, that would kind of be a spoiler if you didn't anticipate that that's what was going on there. And he's got to break it down just that clearly. So word to the wise, if you don't want any hint of spoiler action happening before you actually get to the show. I've read all the spoilers. I'm a super junkie for all this anyway, and it's not going to affect my enjoyment of it, because in this case it's all speculation. It's not spoilers. It's not like him saying this is going to happen here. But speculation is pretty spot on based on what you see, like little tiny background stuff. Anyway, that's our last topic, folks. Thank you for joining me in my solo outing here. Hopefully we'll have more people on for you next week. Do tune in next week. And in the meantime, if you get a chance to go see Captain Marvel, let us know in some comment somewhere what you thought about it. Or comments on the review when it goes up on the website, nerdcaliber.com, or something like that. Once again, for our vast staff who's, like I said, all elsewhere, I am Rodney Brown, the editor-in-chief of Nerd Caliber, and I wish you a good night and a good week. Bye-bye.